here with me again. I think he's going to be my permanent guest from now on.
I'm good with that.
Wait, now your mic's on.
I might be good with that. Now I'm good with that.
We're juggling it all together. Alright, so it's going to be friends and Christian theology, but first, I'm going to give you guys the weather. And today was actually very lovely out. I was very happy I didn't wear a sweater. But it is 44 today, and it's going to get down a little colder, and it's going to be very cloudy. But tomorrow, it is going to rain a little bit, but it's going to be a high of 54, and it's going to be a really nice Friday. Alright, so up next is Even Louder by Stephen McLaughlin. Alright, so officially there are 3 claps in the Friends song.
I feel like there's 4.
I think this thing.
1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. Like, what are they, eighth notes? I want to, we'll get into music theory a little bit here and just go with 4 eighth notes, I think. 16th notes? I don't know. I'll call a music major and ask for help.
I think this is the second greatest dividing factor of America besides when does Christmas start.
3 or 4 claps, guys. You hear it here first. Poll will be up shortly. Twitter, get your voting thumbs ready.
Alright, so here we go. So we're picking apart Friends, and whether as Christians can we find good theological moments in Friends. But first, I'm testing Sean's knowledge of Friends. And so I'm going to give him a catchphrase, and you're going to guess who it is. Alright.
Okay.
So I'll give you an easy one. So when I look at a woman, I just look her up and down and go, how you doing?
It's gotta be Joey. And to be honest, I gotta say it's a little more like, how you doing?
I'm always too afraid to perfect that catchphrase.
I think as long as it doesn't slip into your natural usage, you're fine.
This is true.
I think ironically it's okay.
So ironically, I can memorize it.
I think
Alright, here's your second one. I wish I could, but I don't want to.
I want to say that's Chandler. And I want to say the context, if I can even guess, I think it's... No. Oh, no. That might be Phoebe, actually. I think I know the context better than the character. It's when Ross is unpacking his apartment after he just moved across the street from Monica and Rachel. I think... I'm going to say Phoebe, final answer.
I was really sure you weren't going to get that one, but it is Phoebe.
Wow.
So, the site I have has, the catchphrase and it explains what episode it's from, and you gave it verbatim of what they're explaining what episode it's from. I literally just watched all of these, and I don't even know, what episodes they're from.
Yeah.
But, no, this quote is exactly why I am Phoebe, and we need more Phoebes in the world.
I mean, sometimes you just have to grab a spoon. Thanks, Joey.
Okay.
I believe that's the same episode for context.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, here's your third one. We were on a break!
If anyone in the world says it's anyone besides Ross Geller, then they have to be out of their minds. Gotta be Ross. Classic. Such a classic.
You could probably say it's Rachel mocking Ross.
Possibly. Although, that's a good question. If she ever used his phrase to mock him, I don't think so. I feel like it would have stung Rachel too much.
Probably. It's still the best line ever.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's lasted so long. Okay, I actually saw that. I've seen posts, Tumblr posts, talking about how they need to get Jennifer Aniston and I forgot Ross's actor's name, but the actor who plays Ross, and have them do a commercial for Kit Kat. And Ross is holding up a Kit Kat and he says, "Do you need a break?" And Jennifer Aniston walks by and says something like, "You're still on that?" I feel like that'd be perfect.
No, oh my god.
David Schwimmer. There we go. Got it back. Sorry, fans.
No. And the best part of that whole thing is when Ben's 5 or 6 and Rachel's sits him down and is like, if your daddy ever says this, he's wrong.
Yep.
Alright, here's your fourth one.
Okay.
Could I be any more sarcastic?
It's gotta be Chandler. That's classic Chandler all the way, right there.
Oh, it's one of my favorite episodes when Joey comes in wearing all the clothes. He's like,
Yes.
could I be wearing any more clothes?
Oh, it's lovely how all the characters play off of each other and steal each other's catchphrases. Oh, absolutely perfect.
And they roast each other all the time.
Oh, constantly. That's the majority of the show, pretty much.
Yes. Alright, and that's gonna be our last one. I know!
Monica. Okay, took me a second. I was like, that's not Rachel. Yeah, it's definitely Monica. Anytime someone says something that Monica agrees with or affirms herself, I know it's Monica.
The pause scared me. I felt like I spun around.
Yeah, the cognitive synapses took a second to fire, but we're good. We made it there.
Alright, so we gotta take a short break to do our legal ID, but this is LBC Radio. My name is Morgan Melton. I'm DJing this hour, and Sean Graybill is with me, and we're gonna talk about the Christianity in the Friends TV show. We're gonna be right back after You Can't Be Stopped by Lois Story. And I just explained to Sean that I am cooking Thanksgiving dinner this year, so we shall see how that goes.
Better to cook the turkey than be the turkey.
I'm not making turkey though. I'm gonna make 2 chickens.
Interesting.
My mom has an Instapot. I'm gonna try out this Instapot thing.
Okay. Any preference on the chicken over turkey debate?
My family doesn't eat turkey.
Interesting. Even on Thanksgiving.
Even on Thanksgiving, we never eat turkey.
I feel like that's slightly sacrilege, but my apologies to all the ham fans out there. I got no qualms with you, but chicken, interesting. Never a bad time for chicken, but okay.
It's a whole bird. Like, I'm keeping the bird theme.
That's true. It is a bird. I mean, It's not like you said you were going to like eat like a bald eagle or something. I don't know. That'd be a little out there.
Oh, it would be a very expensive.
And very illegal too. But you know.
Only slightly.
Yeah, small details. Yeah.
That's what makes Thanksgiving fun.
Right.
So, on the theme of Thanksgiving, Friends always has the best Thanksgiving episodes.
It's true.
Like, every sitcom has, like, really good episodes. Like, for The Office, it's the Dundies. I don't know what Seinfeld's is. Does Seinfeld's have a consistent one?
That's a good question.
I
I think it's more like repeated themes within the show, like bringing back Dr. Van Nostrand, or the interrelatedness of the elements. Yeah, I don't. They did a couple clip shows. They did a clip show at 100 and a clip show a couple episodes before the finale. But yeah, not necessarily themed.
Yeah. So Sad Nick's a good Seinfeld.
The sad what?
Sad Nick, a good Seinfeld.
Yeah. Okay.
Alright, but Friends always has the best Thanksgiving shows. So, Friends aired in 1994, and it ran to 2004, and they had 10 seasons. And there was definite character development over the time.
No doubt.
But it started out with a group of, I'm actually forgetting, there's 5 of them. They started out with a group of 4. And so Rachel comes running in because she ran out on Barry. Is there 6 of them?
I feel like there's 3 guys, 2 girls, I think.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah, it's okay. Small details. Numbers.
Right,
it's okay.
Hold on. Rachel, Monica, Joey, Chandler, Phoebe,
Ross.
Rachel. Ross! Wait, there's 7?
No, I think you counted Rachel twice. Guys and girls. Ross, Joey, Chandler, Matthew Perry, then Rachel, Monica, Phoebe.
So there's 6.
There's 6.
Okay.
Yep, 5 on the couch, and then Rachel comes rushing through the door, and Chandler says, "And I won $1 million." And that's how Friends starts.
Yes. The sarcasm of Chandler and his insecurities hits you from the very beginning. But, so it ran for 10 seasons. And so over that time, it is a group of friends who live in New York City who are, like, help each other, and it's a sitcom because they run into everyday experiences of relationships or with their bosses, with each other's significant others, and it goes on from there. And so it has become really relatable to many people, mostly over, like, the teenagers to the 30s side of this is when you make or break your life, you're trying to, like, figure out what you're doing, and these are the common obstacles that you would run into when it comes to them. And so there's a lot of discrepancies on, people say that Friends is not the best sitcom because there's discrepancies on when do they actually go to work and how are they able to afford their things.
Sure.
But at the same time, Monica has that nice apartment because it's her grandma's and it's in her grandma's name. And like, there's legal, logistic reasons. As to why
one of the last lines of the entire series is Chandler saying to the twins as they're walking out the apartment, "And don't remember, this apartment was such a steal." So they do comment on that.
Yeah, and like Joey's and Chandler's apartment is really rinky-dink compared to theirs, and it makes sense how they can afford that because Chandler has a legit job.
Yeah.
He supports Joey.
Yeah, pretty much, honestly.
Joey's a kept man.
Yeah, well kept, yeah.
Alright, so that is the basic summary of Friends. I feel like we covered the major plot points if you don't know Friends, but it's kind of, like, if you've been alive this long, you know something about Friends. like they date each other, they marry each other, like they go through life and they support each other, and this is why it was such a wonderful show, because everyone loved the support that everyone had for each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really learn to love and empathize with the characters.
Alright, so hit us with your first point of Christian theology and Friends, Sean.
Okay, so I was doing a little bit of research, and I was fortunate to come across a blog, shout out to Potter Wars, that actually went through the pilot of Friends and brought out some ideas of Christianity. So the first idea they talk about is this idea of forgiveness within Friends, and the example they use is Monica forgiving Rachel for not inviting her to her wedding without Rachel even needing to apologize. And I think that this idea of forgiveness is something that they go through throughout the series as well. Just, anytime you're interacting with friends, there's going to be misunderstandings, there's going to be miscommunication, and, the idea is that even if it takes an episode or maybe a couple episodes, there's the hope that, the friends will be reunited at the end of the day. Kind of going back to the idea that I'll be there for you, idea that comes in the theme song. So forgiveness, I guess, would be one concept that can be drawn out of Friends.
Okay, so, alright, I'll give you that one. But doesn't that fall under, basic humanity that we meet in everyday shows?
I think so. I think it is kind of a convention of modern sitcoms that are based around a tight-knit group of people that they're going to be kind of like what you see with a literature plot. There's the opening, there's some kind of conflict that arises, and then hopefully by the end you have some kind of resolution where there's forgiveness and everyone's kind of happy and good again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so there's forgiveness in Friends, so there's your point number one. Do you have a point number two?
Yeah, so point number two would be Monica giving Rachel a place to stay when she had nowhere else to go. So this is kind of reminiscent of some of the Bible stories talking about inviting, the foreigner into your home or providing lodging for them, or even the parable Jesus talks about the person who went to get bread from a neighbor's house, this idea of hospitality and being charitable. And we see this with the friends. Even though Monica was slighted, not being invited to the wedding, she still offers Rachel a place to stay in her apartment.
Yeah, okay. This is a legitimate theme. I shouldn't say all of them. Majority of them are very open-hearted and they're very giving. Excuse me. So giving them out, and Monica gives out candy during Christmas, and she caters food a lot for her family. There's other instances where they'll give up parts of their lives to help other people.
I'll bring up a counterpoint to play devil's advocate. The episode where Ross is moving into his new building and he will not contribute $100 to the janitor who's retiring.
Okay. I dislike Ross. We've had this conversation.
Oh,
Ross is
I think you're supposed to.
Right. Well, no, that's true. But I fully side with Ross on this point. He has no idea who the janitor is. He's moving in the day the guy is retiring. I may have contributed some money there, 'cause, I'll be peer pressured into it, but at the same time, I'm kind of behind Ross on this one.
I struggled with this issue too. I've actually had deep conversations with myself about this episode, because I can very much see both sides. I can see Ross had no idea who the guy was, and it's not like they're asking for 10 or $20. They're asking him for $100
Yeah.
to. I think I could be wrong, but I think it's quite
substantial.
It was a substantial sum of money. On the other hand, from the fallout that happened from Ross not contributing to the party, I think in hindsight he would have paid $100 just to make friends with everybody in the building. So I don't know. Maybe that's a lesson for us viewers at home. If something could contribute to your extended happiness, such as where you reside and the people with whom you interact, it might not be a bad idea to contribute a couple bucks to make your standard of living better for the duration of your stay in said building. Just saying.
So you think it's more of a lesson episode of you don't want to be like Ross?
I think there's a lesson that can be derived. Isn't that most Friends episodes? You don't want to be like Ross. I don't know. I feel like that's a theme.
It kind of is a theme. While I was doing research for this is a rabbit trail. We're gonna go on a rabbit trail.
Oh, absolutely.
But while I was doing research for this, I found this article by this guy who's America became stupid after Friends because of their hatred of Ross. that in Friends, like, they're never willing to listen to him. Like, they always groan whenever he talks about a lecture, and they
Sure.
always pretend to, like, be busy in case he wants them to come to a lecture. And, like, Ross's intelligence is hated and, like, joked about, and, like, no one likes Ross because he's smart. Which I don't think is true. I thought the plot of it is because he's smart. Because to be fair, Ross was, like, one of the dumber ones in his field. But, well, I'll humor this guy for a little bit. But, like, he's saying, like, after all of that, that was the rise of Paris Hilton, and that was when Clinton became president, and he blames it all on Friends.
Interesting.
That it's all because they made fun of Ross, that he was so smart and we didn't appreciate it. But, like, if Ross was so smart, he wouldn't have done all the million things that he did.
I wrestle with that. Again, going back to the idea, I can see both sides. I want to give the character credit because, to his credit, he is a doctor, so he had to defend, write, and go through a doctoral thesis, which I have insane mad respect for anyone who successfully writes and defends a doctoral thesis. Unless God calls me to it, I feel like that's something I never want to have to experience in my life. But again, I'm going to say that now and watch God will have me do that. But regardless, Ross has a doctor. That's major points to him right off the bat. He's extremely knowledgeable about his field. He's extremely well versed in his area of interest. And I think he kind of fits into that almost stereotypical nerd type idea. Not that he's like the high pulled pants with the pens in the shirt pocket, but the idea that along with his intelligence, there's a little bit of social awkwardness that comes into play. So, like his over pronunciation of every word, a little bit of not understanding the social norms, and that almost balances out his high level of intelligence as a character, possibly leading to some of his poor life decisions as well, balancing out his aspect very high on an intellectual scale, but handling things like relationships and divorces, that kind of balances him out as a character.
Yeah. Well, see, I just watched the psychologist episode where Phoebe has Raj as the boyfriend at this point, and he's the psychiatrist and he's psychoanalyzing everyone.
Okay.
And so apparently Ross has dysfunctional relationships and so many divorces because he's trying to, like, counterbalance Monica's failures in their family's eyes.
Yes, yeah, that's an interesting point. I feel like it's Freudian, maybe not.
I feel like it's a little reachy, but
Yeah, I would tend to say that's reaching too. It's an interesting observation from a watcher of the show. I don't know how accurate it is from, a paid professional psychologist.
Yeah, like accurately, if someone in their life has a lot of divorces, like, are they just making up for their siblings' failures? Alright, I've rabbit trailed. I'm sorry. So, do you have a third point before we get a break?
Sure. I actually want to bring up the episode where it's pretty much centered around Joey and Phoebe having a discussion about, is there truly such a thing as an unselfish act?
Yes!
I feel like this is a highly theological discussion.
It is.
It ties back to the Bible beautifully. Verses come to mind like, all our deeds are filthy rags before God. Mm-hmm. There's no one who does good, not even one. Mm-hmm. The heart is deceptive above all things. You can trust it. So, if I'm going to answer the question that the show poses honestly, I would say that, kind of going along with the theological idea of total depravity, that every area of our lives is affected by sin, but we're not as bad as we could be. I'm inclined to say that even that believers are regenerated by the Holy Spirit, and that through the power of the Spirit they can do things that honor and glorify God, but I'm not sure if I'm willing to break away from the idea that there still is some of our human nature attached to that. Because, just going back to the idea that Jesus was the only perfect person, it seems logical that he would be the only one who could truly do an unselfish thing. I think even in the most unselfish thing that could ever be done for someone else, I still feel like every decision we make somehow is impacted by our human nature.
Oh, no, without a doubt. Like, I love this episode, mostly just because I love Phoebe and Joey together.
Yes.
Like, Phoebe is the most amazing thing in the world. So we need more Phoebes in the world.
Yes.
She's, like, saving the Christmas trees because they're not fulfilling their Christmas duty.
Right.
Like, we need more Phoebes. But
She and Charlie Brown would get along well.
Yes. Yes, and I fully agree with you. Like, that episode does spark a lot of philosophical questions. But no, I think you're right that we don't have unselfish acts without selfish means. But actually thinking that in our society is considered to be a not a diagnosis. What do they call it?
Like a social taboo in a sense?
Symptom of social anxiety.
Which part is a symptom? Thinking that there are no unselfish deeds?
Yeah, thinking that every good deed has a selfish motive behind it is considered a symptom for social anxiety.
Okay.
Which, like, kind of makes sense, but at the same time, like, we fully understand that's true.
Yeah, I think it really comes back to the basis you're coming from. I think, is it coming from a heart of understanding scripture, or is it coming from a heart of fear and fearing society? Because I can see the anxiety part as far as, oh, I'm worried that someone has ulterior motives in everything they're doing, so I can never truly accept something nice that someone tries to do for me.
Yeah.
I think that could relate to the anxiety part, whereas understanding that we are totally depraved and it's only by the Holy Spirit that we are regenerated and that faith is a gift from God and nothing of ourselves, I think when we approach it from that perspective, that's where we get the truth that's found in Scripture, and that's the worldview that we can use to accurately understand life.
Yeah. My sister's listening.
Nice.
She says we're getting too biblical.
What's her name?
Jenna.
Jenna, thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you're enjoying this biblical discussion. We promised friends in Christianity, so here's the Christianity part. And I mean, this is a Bible college after all, so I think our theology professors might shed a tear if we didn't bring in some of those key terms.
This is true. But no, I think you're absolutely right. I think you kind of hit the jackpot here of all of that. But I wonder how many actually took that episode and like devoured it, or like it was just a fun conversation between Phoebe and Joey. But no, it's always interesting when sitcoms like enter into that philosophy or do things, because they kind of try to make it funny, but at the same time, like these are legitimate things that like people think about daily.
Exactly. Something I find super funny is that one of the examples Phoebe tries to raise is she has an ice pack on her arm as she's calling Joey from the coffee shop and says, "Joey, I just did an unselfish thing. I let a bee sting me so that he could look tough in front of his bee friends." And Joey's sitting there deadpan like, "Phoebe, you know that bee probably died after he stung you, right?" And he was like, "Oh my goodness."
I know, that soul scene confuses me so much, because in that moment, Joey had a better understanding of the world and creation than Phoebe did.
Yep.
And it's just like, what?
I'll attribute it to Phoebe's naivety, which can be beneficial to her at times.
Yeah.
And then Joey kind of brings, it's funny, Joey's the one bringing reality back to the situation in this case.
Yeah.
I think the conclusion of the episode is also good too, where Phoebe, I believe she helps Joey get an acting job. It was with the PBS pledge drive, and I think she got Joey screen time because her donation helps PBS reach their goal. And she's like, "Oh my goodness, I helped Joey, I'm so happy. Oh no, I can't believe I just said that."
Yeah.
That sudden realization.
Yeah, and it like puts you in that cycle. It like thoroughly explores the cycle and how you put yourself back into it. And it kind of reminds me of what Benjamin Franklin tried to do of like reaching all the virtues, and he was like, I can't get this last one because like I just fall back into the circle again.
Yes, Phoebe is Ben Franklin. You heard it here first, folks.
To be fair, Ben Franklin did it first.
That's true. I mean, you're technically not wrong.
All right.
Hey, if Phoebe's mom can come back as a cat, Phoebe can come back as Benjamin Franklin.
This is true. And she explores orgasms.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we could so get into that with new spirituality. Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how much like Phoebe like instigated that. Cause like Phoebe's like borderline Wicca.
Yeah, with certain things, no question. Like with spirituality and like animism, the idea her mom's a cat, that's a big one.
That was a fun episode though.
It is funny.
Tell her mom's not a cat.
Oh my, okay. I very much sympathize for Ross. I can totally see the logical part of his brain working there, but there's also a point when It's that whole biblical idea of speaking truth in love. So yeah, Ross, thank you. There is truth, but like your friend needs some love right now. Like she doesn't have a mom in her life. Like speak some love into her life. Just saying.
See, Ross is a butt. Alright. We're actually gonna take a break this time. Alright, so this is LBC Radio, and coming up next is Lay My Head Down by Taylor Lionheart. Lay My Head Down by Taylor Lionheart. And it is a very beautiful song, very lovely. All right, so we're back. We're back with Sean, checking to make sure all the microphones are on this time. All right, so Sean gave us 2 points. I'm gonna give my one. Sean has 4. But my biggest, mine's trying to be a big one. All right, so I was inspired by C.S. Lewis with his quote saying, "Friendship is unnecessary, like philosophy, like art. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things that give value to survival." So, I felt like that was like, you can make that the underarching theme for Friends. That they have the sanctity of friendship and the sanctity of family, that they create their own little family in New York, and this is how you support each other, and that it is the sanctity of family, of that covenant. I believe your grandmother is here. So it supports that sanctity of covenant and friendship. And so with the different relationships and how they support each other, gives all that up. And they put value on friendship that we don't usually hold in this day and age. But there's a big con to this. Like, this is the major pro, because you have the friends and you have the epitome of sanctity of friendship and everything you would ever want in your life. But the major con is that within the sanctity of that friendship, they get rid of the sanctity of marriage. And so, like, with Emily,
Emma was Ross and Rachel's kid.
That's right.
Yep.
With Emily, like, all of his friends, like, he was already married to her. And they're like,
yes.
Nah, just divorce her. Like, she's too much trouble. Like, like, he was already married to her and he wanted to do it. All he needed was his friends to stand behind him and say, this is something you need to do.
Yep. And I totally see that as a dichotomy between a Christian worldview and a secular worldview, where I can totally understand where each side is coming from, whereas the secular worldview says you have not only 5 other friends in your life, but this person who legally is your wife, but practically isn't, in a sense. Mm-hmm. They make that joke, like, I don't even know where my wife is. And she's asking you to get rid of one of your best friends. I can see the secular argument saying that person, to use modern language, is toxic and shouldn't be a part of your life. Yeah. And it can be easy for society to kind of write off Emily. Yeah. I've wrestled with it. I've thought through this too as well. Just the Christian perspective of the sanctity of marriage. That if Ross was to honor the marriage vows that he took with Emily, it might mean making extremely difficult decisions, like, stepping back from certain social situations in his life, whether that's permanent or maybe it's just for a season. That idea isn't explored either, where some of the practical ideas like going to marriage counseling, reestablishing trust, helping get Emily to a place where she's okay with the rest of the group and okay with Rachel. And maybe that place doesn't come, but I think for Christians, our ministry comes as we walk through those difficult decisions that we have to make and seek to obey God in them. Yeah. So I think, like, while humanly it would be absolutely devastating to have to step back for Ross to have to step back from his 5 other friends for a time, I think if he was a Christian, his responsibility would be to honor God with his marriage covenant and reflect the Christ's love for the church and how he demonstrated love for his new wife.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like the biggest hiccup to all of this with me was that, like, Emily's like, I'll make this work. Mm-hmm. And Rachel's the one who's getting hurt the most by this, and she's like, no, I understand, like, this is your wife, you need to, like, make this work. Yeah. And it was the other 4 of them that, like, ruined it all. And so they kind of, like, they fully have that sanctity of friendship and that sanctity of family that is really encouraging and really inspiring to, like, how you gotta stick by your friends even though Chandler kissed your girlfriend. Like those things
Yeah.
where like you stick by them like you stick by your family, but it never ever makes those tough calls that like we are gonna have to make and we do make of that even though this person has been an incredible blessing in your life, you've gotta cut them out.
Yeah, I think for believers watching the show, it can be possibly a warning to idolatry. I think in a sense we can see there's idolatry of the other friends within the group, that circle of 6 almost becomes their God in a sense. That while I'm 100% saying that believers can have a super high value on friendship, and I think they should. I think believers, more than anyone else, should represent to the world what it looks like to have relationships that are pure and that are holy and sacrificial and selfless and self-giving. But that all has to be done in an attitude of how we're living for God. And God has to be our number one priority. I know it might sound cliche, like you might hear like teachers tell like Sunday school, like, oh, God's our friend. Well, yeah, but like it goes back to that verse, like there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So someone who's closer than your blood relative, someone who's closer than someone who's walked through all of life with you. That's the friend we have in God.
Yeah.
That's the friend we have in God, rather than making gods out of our friends.
You got a friend in me.
That too.
No, I feel like you should be able to immortalize that on some brick on some wall over here somewhere.
I'm gonna cross stitch it into a pillow. That is gonna be my goal in
Just
life.
put it everywhere all over again.
I'll have to go back in the recording and find that quote, and we'll do something with it.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. Very brilliant.
Well, praise God.
Alright, so my sister has written back
Ooh.
why Ross is the best character.
We have mail.
Well, she's typing it. She doesn't like that.
Oh, okay.
Alright, so Ross is the most rational one. He's not out to manipulate anyone. I feel like
We can
Ross
dive
does
into that.
some he does a lot of manipulating with his I'm fine, that whole episode where who's dating who? What is he upset about? Like someone's dating his ex of like remember when he gets
with Joey and Rachel when he's dating
yes,
Charlie.
It's Joey and Rachel.
Yeah,
Joey and Rachel.
yeah.
That's right. I couldn't think of like which ex they were that didn't work.
Right,
But
yeah,
it's with
Rachel.
Joey and Rachel, and he's with Charlie. Like this is the one time he gets a good girl.
Right, he's actually happy.
Yeah,
like,
and he manipulates. All right, it's okay. We'll let her have it.
wait,
All right.
Yeah, we'll keep rolling.
He's not the manipulating one. He will participate in their stupid within reason.
Okay, my first thought is the water balloons filled with the margarita mix or whatever that is. So, yeah, so participating in stupid within reason. That's fair.
Okay. And he's just trying to do the right thing.
That's interesting. I guess I'd say at what cost? And that might be like kind of the social implications that maybe it's like if we're looking at like a type alignment chart, the top left, like the lawful good. So yeah, Ross is gonna try to pursue the best good, but he's gonna stick to the letter of the law and possibly miss the intent of the law a lot of times. And I think that's why he rubs people the wrong way.
Okay. All right.
I will give your sister credit though. I think Ross does get a worse rap than he deserves. I think it's kind of funny that people like to hate on him so much. I kind of laugh at a lot of the commentaries people share about really not liking him. Maybe it's because I can identify with him a little bit, that I can kind of sympathize with some of his social awkwardness to an extent. But I will give her credit that he's not as bad as a lot of people try to make him out to be.
I don't know, man. Just Ross. I understand he needs to be in the show, but I don't like him. I still don't like him. But all right. So, what's your third point? Do you have a third point?
Okay, so our third point for seeing Christian values in friends is this idea of helping your friends overcome the different obstacles that are holding them back. Specifically, with Monica helping Rachel overcome her use of credit cards and her reliance on her parents' finances. And I think we see this a lot in the different episodes, whether it's the friends helping each other get jobs, or Monica and Phoebe going into catering together, or or Phoebe pretending to be Joey's agent, so he doesn't feel as bad at one point. So yeah, I think we do see a lot of times this idea of like giving your friends a boost up, like giving them that lift they need, or if they're low and we're high, reaching down and helping pull them up to where we are at. I think we do see that often throughout the show.
No, that's a good example. That's a good thing to pull from it.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into, can we find Christianity in TV, or has TV completely gone to the devil? Alright, so up next is I Will Rise by Chris Tomlin. Rise by Chris Tomlin. And so we're back, pulling back the deep issues. This show has gotten deeper than our past was.
It is really deep, but I think that's kind of nice, you know, to show people our theological sides.
Yes, we surely showed our colors with total depravity.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so what was your final point?
Alright, so final point, at least for this show, of seeing Christian values in Friends, is the idea of being willing to help even when it's not fun or pleasant. An example given is when Joey and Chandler go to help Ross assemble furniture, even though they don't particularly like assembling furniture, which actually unintentionally harkens back to our first quote about Phoebe saying, "I wish I could help, but I don't want to." So this idea about, I guess it's kind of self-sacrificial in a sense, where we see some of the more tender moments in Friends where they're willing to cut back on what makes themselves the most happy in order to serve the rest of the group in a sense.
Okay. Yeah, it provokes that audience of when you watch something like this so much that you like instinctively start to act like that. So yeah. Okay. All right. So I've been convinced through this process that Friends has more Christian theology than I've given it credit for.
I think the viewer has to work to pull it out.
This is true.
Yeah, this is the this is when it's okay to eisegete. For all my Bible students out there, don't eisegete the Bible, but eisegete cultural artifacts like secular TV shows. Pull out the good and leave the rest behind.
So basically pull out all the other characters and leave Ross behind this time.
Unless you're Jenna, and then in that case, feel free to redeem him too.
There you go.
Or maybe not if he's totally depraved. I don't know. We can have that conversation later as well.
Okay, so like all the characters are sinners. Well, like we'll make that a blanket statement that cannot be refuted. But apparently Ross is the best sinner out of all of them.
The best sitter?
Sinner.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
I mean, Phoebe mugged people in the street to make a living, so...
But Phoebe redeemed her ways and she started helping people so that they wouldn't mug people.
Right, yeah, so I guess there's like secular redemption in that regard.
Yeah.
So, is the idea that Ross is the best sinner that he isn't shooting for redemption? Possibly?
I feel like you're making this too deep, Sean.
Yeah, I guess I want to analyze, like, alright, what makes him the best... If we're going to give a best sinner Dundee to one of the Friends characters, what makes him the best sinner out of the group of 6?
I should say he's the best of the sinners.
The best,
best. Not to say that he achieves sinner status better than they do.
Like the morally best sinner? Or just... Okay, he's the best sinner. We're going to roll with it. Ross is the best sinner. You heard it here first, folks. Ross is the best sinner, confirmed.
I don't think you can say that he's morally the best, because 4 times he's been divorced.
3, I think.
3 times he's been divorced.
Yeah.
He has 2 children. Okay, so even if we're to put that aside of stupidity of like the first one wasn't his fault.
The first.
Divorce.
Yeah.
The first
Yep.
divorce.
Yep. Yeah.
The first divorce is not his fault.
Correct.
Like, I don't know if I could give him that he's the best.
Yeah.
I kind of understand it. Like compared to Joey, sure.
Right. Yeah. Joey is typical sleeps around with a lot of women type of thing like that. So. Then again, now that I'm thinking about it, are we trying to put labels on something that God doesn't put labels on? Like, are we measuring numbers and quantities and amounts of sin, or are we just trying to identify who is the most morally upstanding character of the group?
Well, okay, to be clear, we're not ranking sin.
Okay, good. We clarified that.
The audience is a little confused on how we missed that clarification of theology.
Sure. Just to clear that up. Because it's a fun game, but is it not a game that God plays?
Okay, let's put it this way. Which is the best character to model oneself
To
after
emulate.
morally?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd probably, man, I guess like this kind of goes back to the idea that they all have elements of depravity that they model, but I guess we'd almost have to look at frequency. Like Joey, he does sleep around with a lot of women, but he's not necessarily mean to them. He just kind of objectifies and uses them, but then there are some tender moments in which he treats his friends well.
Like he offers to take care of Rachel, and like he proposes to her. And
Yeah, so
like,
there are
makes a
definitely
space for the
tender
baby.
moments. So there's like that kind of balance there. With Phoebe, maybe it's more early life where she was living on the street and mugging people, but then you could argue, is that out of necessity? Is she doing it so she can eat? And then later in life, she tries to make up for it in a secular sense by doing good deeds, supporting Greenpeace, environmental issues, humanity issues, stuff like that. So kind of, I guess, a balance there. For Rachel, I guess it would be shallowness, maybe, or materialism might be a better way to define her ideology. What redeeming qualities does Rachel have? If you had to state...
Rachel grows up a lot.
She
and,
does.
Rachel's kind of a subplot of the whole show, just watching her grow up.
Coming into her own type
Yeah.
idea? Oh, there's a German word for that that's used to describe literature, a coming of your own story. I forget that word. I apologize to my high school literature teacher, but hey, I remember the concept, I just can't tell you the word. Sorry.
There you go. There's lots of German words for like senses of feelings. Like there's German words for feelings of certain situations.
I saw a post that said German is pretty much the language equivalent of the dictionary of obscure sorrows, and I feel like that's very accurate. So while Germans might not be emotional people on the outside, they sure do have a language that can encompass a lot of emotions. So props to them for that. Germans +1. Brownie points for today.
Marvelous. I feel like that makes German literature the best literature out of all of it.
That's a good question. Like a good point to consider. Like, is German literature the more emotionally deep than other forms of literature, or possibly they just use less words to communicate more complex emotions? That's
Yeah.
another potential.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, focusing. So
Yep,
Rachel,
back to task.
Rachel. So we see Rachel grow up a lot. And
Yeah.
so, like she comes from that shallow person to like a strong individual. And I'm trying to think through it. I honestly don't know, because you don't ever really see her like officially grow up until she has Emma, which is kind of sad. Like she never grows up for her own means. Like she just grows up because she has to.
You're right. I'm trying to think. I don't think Emma is in the show on the episode where it's her 30th birthday and she breaks up
No.
with Tag.
No.
Right, so that might be a glimpse of it a little bit, where she's kind of coming into her own a little bit. I guess that milestone of hitting her 30th birthday kind of helps her realize some things, and maybe that kind of starts her on that process of finding what she values in life. And ultimately, she learns that she values love and the people she loves, namely Ross when she gets off the plane to not go to Paris, whereas old Rachel might have been, oh my goodness, I'm going to Paris, I'm going to work in the fashion icon of the world, absolutely.
Yeah.
But grown Rachel realizes I got to be with a person and the people who I love.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm
there's
very conflicted
growth.
over that episode. Because it's such a great opportunity for Rachel. Oh well. Alright.
I'm curious now. You're conflicted over it.
I'm conflicted over it because it's a great opportunity for Rachel. They've already decided that they're not going to be a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're just going to go down this track, like, go to Paris. Like, do this. And you're... As much as, like, this is one of the cons of Friends, is that they kind of drill in that the friends you stick with the longest are they going to be the best friends for the rest of your life. Like, you're not going to be able to recreate that. But I don't think that's true. And so, like, she kind of reinforces that when she doesn't go to Paris and she doesn't do any of that.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting dynamic. I guess it really comes down to where your values are at.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'd say that it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely clear, at least, that the friends all place high values on each other. And I guess what we really don't see a lot of that explored is after the finale, when Monica and Chandler move to a more rural part of town.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they're not going to be in that apartment anymore.
No.
And they're kind of the hub for all the activity. So sadly, I never watched the Joey spinoff. I know a lot of people say that it wasn't nearly as good as Friends, and I can respect that. I wonder if that's had any insight into the dynamics of the friends after the finale or not. Maybe it's more focused on just Joey's life. Again, unfortunately, that's something I don't know for sure. Or potentially maybe everyone just started meeting in a more rural area, depending, I'm not sure how many minutes away from the city it was, but that could be a thing too, whereas they just met at Monica and Chandler's house.
Yeah.
Maybe less frequency if it's farther away, but less frequency, increased intensity of coming together. What's the phrase? Something like being far apart increases the fondness of coming together. I forget the words, but that's the idea.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. All right, so our time's almost up, so let's dive into Ross. I will say Ross's redeeming factor
Okay.
is his strive for intelligence and his strive to do. I don't know if it's his strive to do well in his field, because we see a lot in some of the episodes where he makes jokes about how other scientists came out refuting his work and proving how wrong he was about something, but he still puts stuff out and he strives for that intelligence factor. I will say that is his redeeming factor.
Yeah, I think we can really tie that into the verse, in everything you do, work as if you're working for the Lord, not men. Now, of course, Ross not being a believer, that's not necessarily his motivational factor, but I think believers who watch the show can pull that out. And I think there is something to be said for pursuing excellence of quality in the work that we do. I think as believers, when we make the most of our time, when we use the time that we have to work to serve God in whatever field we're in, I think that brings him honor and glory. Yeah. Possibly contra The Office at times, where you see the characters goofing off and not necessarily doing their work. So just tie it into The Office there. But yeah, I think Ross is honorable in that regard.
Yeah. All right, so we've managed to take up the whole hour. Bravo.
Excellent.
All right, but this is LBC Radio, and my hour with y'all is done. So thank you, Sean, for coming out and doing this with me again.
Anytime.
All right, so up next is I Look to You by Joe Vaughan. Tonight is happy hour at Starbucks. I don't think it's going to be happy hour for Starbucks on campus, but if you're a commuter, tonight is happy hour until 7. And I hope y'all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, because I will not be here next week. It will be Thanksgiving. But have a good weekend and have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a wonderful break.